Dan, I have to admit something. I am worn out.
Really? Well,
Worn out.
let me tell you something. I have to admit I am worn out as well.
Well, you didn't let me finish. The reason I'm worn out is because I've been watching you.
Oh, yeah. Well, then that makes sense. Makes perfect sense.
I have been watching you. You've had a small project in your wood yard, and this small weekend project has now become a lengthy, protracted event in your
uh,
wood yard.
yeah, it's been drawn out a little bit longer than a weekend,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But it is complete.
So it is complete now?
I'm done. Yes, I am
Okay.
done.
Well, that's good to hear. If everyone is curious, first off, this is Joe and Dan with the Hounds. Thank you for listening to us here on this beautiful Wednesday morning. I am a YouTube channel called Ohio Woodburner, and Dan is a YouTube channel called Back 40 Firewood. And we have started this podcast here just to expand our interest area to a new medium. And the podcast is now the largest firewood podcast in the world. We're excited to say that. And we continue to share parts of our days with all who can stay awake and listen to us babble.
Very well described. Yes, exactly right. Perfect.
So Dan has a large project that he has been on, and we've all been following with morbid interest. And I've been talking to him in between where he puts videos up about the progress he's making. So we thought we would talk about this today, not as much from just having a project, but about this specific project. Because I think there's a lot of people out there that have an interest in these carports. They're very useful. They're very practical. You can use them for anything.
Yeah, I was actually surprised at how much interest there was and how much feedback I was getting and questions and people just leaving comments saying, I'm watching this just to see how it goes because I'm considering purchasing one or I've already ordered one and I'm preparing to myself for what's in store.
Yeah, I see carports everywhere. And some people that would have a house with a garage and a driveway, you'll see a carport on the side of the house. I've seen them they've put them over playgrounds or just outdoor areas. I see them at retail locations where they'll just use them for outside storage, or to get anything under a roof. They're very practical. And it's just like a large metal framework with a tin roof on it. Is that fair to say?
Yes. And the brand that I went with was VersaTube. And just to get this out there right away, I'm not sponsored by VersaTube. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I bought this with my own money, just out of doing research and deciding to go with the DIY approach of putting this together and putting it up myself instead of hiring someone to come in and build me a small pole barn.
So let me just ask you right away. Now that you've built this, would you have second thought hired someone to build it for you?
If I ever have to build another one, I will not be building it. Someone else will be building it for me.
Oh, wow. So are you saying, was it more involved than you thought, or just physically taxing, or what's the deal here?
I don't want to make that sound like this is impossible for anyone to do. I'm just saying, like, my experience, my skill level, it was just not, up to par of putting together metal buildings. And it was a lot of work just laying everything out, putting all these screws in, like hundreds and hundreds of screws. Yeah. And then once the frames were together, just being able to manipulate them around and set them in place. I mean, I had me and my wife who, if I would have had like someone else helping me, maybe would have went easier, but it was a lot of work.
So, were there any injuries? Because I know you're working with metal. There's always sharp burrs or sharp edges. Any injuries take place?
No, just minor ones. Like sometimes the self tapping screws, I would be putting too much pressure on them and they'd slip off, and I nicked my skin off my finger. And then one time we were attempting, before we realized that we couldn't lift these frames up, we were trying to lift one up, and I set it down and it kind of fell onto my arm, and I had a big bruise from that.
Oh my!
But otherwise, no major injuries.
So this carport, the VersaTube, I think it's just you could just call it a big boys erector set, probably. Uh,
Yes.
it's it's you're putting pieces of the puzzle together. You probably didn't have to cut much with a saw. It's all just slide it in and get the self tapping screws into it. Is that
Yeah.
is that about right?
Yep. Everything fits together. Everything up until putting the steel sheets on the roof. That's where I started running into issues. Everything up until then was very easy, very straightforward. And just for context, the size that I went with was 18 feet wide, 30 feet long, and 12 feet high.
That's pretty high off the ground.
Yeah, especially for someone who is not a fan of heights.
What's 12 feet? The peak, or
Um,
like where the gutters would go?
where the gutters would go. So inside on the trusses, the clearance of the lowest point of the truss is like 11. So like it's almost 12 feet to that clearance.
Uh huh. All right. And you're saying that the height is what made things super difficult for you?
Well, so, yeah. So you put all of the trusses together, which is like just a big frame that sits in the base, and then you have to stand these things up and slide them down onto the base. And so that's where we just couldn't get these things lifted up. And then once I figured out a way to get the trusses up, my options were I was going to go buy like a 12-foot step ladder, which would have taken me forever to climb up and down each time to put the purlins on. And then I reached out to my good friend and urban logger, Rick, who was kind enough to lend me his lift. He brought that over, dropped it off, and that made the world of difference.
Oh, wow. There's always a tool out there that makes the life so much easier.
Yes.
So, what is the package like though when VersaTube delivers it? Is it got everything you need? Is everything in there? Do they give you the directions and they all make sense? Anyone with just basic mechanical knowledge can do this?
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. Once I placed my order, I was emailed the instructions and like this guide that I could kind of look through and kind of get a sense of what I needed to do. And then the frame and all of the components to the frame that shipped within, I think, 10 business days of being ordered. And then the steel for the roof shipped in another pallet. So that arrived like a week later. So 2 pallets come delivered right to the end of my driveway. The steel frame driver, he did not have a way to unload, so I had to use my tractor. But then the other delivery of the steel sheeting, that guy had like one of those little piggyback things, the pallet forks that go on the end of the truck, and he'd drop them down and drive it off. And so he was able to unload it and put it right where I wanted it.
So, do you think that's an arrangement you would make with the delivery service for tailgate service, or would a homeowner would need a machine to unload the pallets?
I think it all depends on like the luck of the draw with your drivers, like the contracted delivery drivers, because
Yeah.
they called me, confirmed, the time and the day, and then they asked if I had a way to unload it. And then when the driver came, I ended up talking to him, and he said sometimes what ends up happening is people will need to like unload pieces of the trusses from the truck to get it light enough to like lift it up to slide it onto a truck, or
Yeah.
Just one way or the other to get it off.
I'd imagine that's pretty heavy.
Yeah, it was like 1,500 pounds, the pallet was.
Yeah. But man, you got to secure that to the ground because you just made yourself the world's largest kite if there's some big wind that comes in, right?
Well, so this is where things like are a little interesting because I'm not sure just the way that it arrived and the way I put it together, you can either anchor it into concrete or you can anchor it right to the ground. But either way, it's still got a little like wobble to it.
Yeah, I
And
saw that.
yeah, I've been getting feedback on people saying that I need to just put some cross bracing in, or that I can contact VersaTube and they actually sell like a kit for cross bracing.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I got to figure something out though, just to make it a little more rigid and to yeah, just to hold it down. Although it's pretty heavy.
I would also think too that once that is built and it's all completed, if it isn't secured to the ground, you could probably move that and slide it into different parts of your yard, couldn't you?
Yes, and I think that's one of the ways that a lot of people, that's why they don't like anchor them into concrete or put them on like a footing and really tie it into one spot, because you then have the flexibility to, yeah, move it around. Maybe something changes and you want to, slide it over so it's next to a different building.
Sure.
The options are there.
Uh-huh. So when you sit back now and look at it, are you satisfied?
Yes. Yes, I am. I'm happy I went this way. Uh, it was very cost effective as well. I paid just a little over $5,000 for the set, for everything, and I think my lowest bid that I had for the pole barn was like 20 grand. So, so I saved myself a lot of costs and labor. However, yeah, it was a lot of work, and it was just more. I ended up, my frame somehow ended up being a little off square, so my steel sheeting doesn't
Oh,
quite
that's got to be
line up.
frustrating.
Yeah, it was just
I was thinking too, when okay, you have your frame built and now you want to start laying that sheeting on. Man, if you're off just an eighth, by the time you get to the other side, you're off by a foot.
yeah, exactly.
And then if you're climbing up and down with a ladder, just by having the ladder leaning against it is going to make it move, off. It's got to be hard to get it to be square.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
that's one thing why I'm glad I didn't have to use the ladder and I had the lift. But yeah, one, if you're off a fraction of an inch, it ends up multiplying every sheet you put on, and that's what I found out.
Yeah. Wow.
But it's nothing that's like super noticeable unless you really look for it. So it's not, I mean, it's just cosmetic, and no one's going to be, I'm not like having a parade of homes back in my wood yard where people can come walking through and look at my craftsmanship or anything.
Yeah. So do you have an idea what you want to do with it now, or is it a blank slate still? You try you sit back there and you're looking and you're thinking, I need to put this here and put that there.
Well, that's the interesting thing is I've kind of started thinking now. I had an idea in mind of where I was going to put like the Easton Made splitter, the Wolf Ridge splitter, my bundle station, but now I've got a few different ideas to how things might possibly fit, because I can actually fit my tractor between the trusses. So I
Ooh.
could drive in and like, you know, arrange almost like things perpendicular inside the building. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what happens.
And then maybe stringing solar lights through the rafters and putting a lot of lighting underneath it.
Yes. Yep. Gonna have to put up the lighting, and who knows? Maybe like a ceiling fan for those hot days to just keep the airflow moving. I'm just.
Yeah.
But I do want to potentially add on like a lean-to on one side for some storage, so that will help.
Uh-huh.
Keep things, I guess, structurally sound and anchor it down as well.
All right. So you like the VersaTube. When I am out driving around out here in my part of the country, there's these little pop-up locations where they'll have about 20 sheds sitting in like an a closed down gas station or something, and it's someone's selling these sheds, and there'll always be a carport in there that's for sale also. They look to be kind of flimsy, but they're also put together.
Yeah.
uh, is that an option though with VersaTube? Are there any that are out there that are already put together and that you could just have them delivered like that?
I'm not sure if that would be an option from VersaTube, but potentially an option like from a, second hand, like somebody that's already owned it and is selling
Yeah.
it. And some of those, I mean, you can get them like 8 feet wide, 10 feet wide. So some of the smaller ones, I think you could keep together and then just move like on a trailer or
Yeah.
some way. But
So VersaTube has an excellent reputation, or they're an A plus kind of company. And that's where a lot of these shed companies, I mean, it all comes down to who owns it, I guess. But I don't trust a lot of these guys because I'm always thinking I need to get one of those over top of my processor. But hearing you and knowing what you went through to get that thing put together, I don't, I don't know if I have it in me, or it would take me. You'd have to send a picture of it to my nursing home to let me know that it's finally put together. But then the other thing is buying one from one of these other places, and I just don't trust them. I don't know.
yeah.
But I can't help but think that, you have the puzzle pieces, you slide it all together, but it's got to be driving those self-tapping screws. That's got to, your arm and wrist and elbows got to be killing you after a while, hasn't it?
Oh, yes. It gets to be very monotonous. And like, I think each of the sections had 115 screws that you needed to put in. And that was just the frame and the truss. And then,
Oh,
and then the roof and everything. Yeah.
what did you use? A battery powered driver
Yep.
or electric, or what was it?
A battery powered impact driver, which luckily I had two batteries. So I was always swapping, one would be charging while I'm using one. And
Do you feel that it survived this experience and it's still a good tool, or did it wear it out?
I'm not sure yet. We'll see.
I'm just wondering if you should budget yourself a new, um, cordless driver like that, because you'd think you could probably throw it in the garbage when you're done building it.
Yeah, I've had this one for a while, so if it does, I've been planning to upgrade. So if this one does clunk out on me, it's no big deal.
Yeah. So what are the list of tools that you needed to do it?
You need, well, they recommend like a step ladder, a rubber mallet if you need to pound some stuff together, your impact driver or drill, and that's about it. It's like the tubes all slide together real easy. I didn't have any. They did warn in the instructions that sometimes you might have to take a screwdriver and kind of bend some of the slots so they fit together better, but all of mine fit together great. And then it's just a matter of putting down the brackets where they need to go and driving in those screws.
Yeah. Interesting. So, but it's fair to say that you're going to stick with firewood. You're not going to open up a carport construction company anytime
No,
soon.
no chance. No chance at all. If I'd have to do it over, I probably wouldn't have gone 12 high. I don't know. I'm still wondering if it's going to be a benefit to have the height for like sound, so like it's not so loud inside, and
Right.
just for running the conveyor. And I think it might not be as hot in the summer because there's more room for the hot air to go up. I don't know. We'll see.
Hmm. Did they talk about the color roof to choose, and like a white roof or a black roof, creates different temperatures underneath during different times of the year?
No, I didn't really look into that at all. They had options, and I just picked the charcoal color just
Yeah.
because.
I would just think that like a white roof would be better in the summertime, wouldn't it? It would reflect the heat
I think so. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe not radiate it through to you, because that's still a tin roof and it's not, it conducts heat pretty
Oh
good.
yeah. Let me tell you,
Uh-huh.
I was kneeling on it, and it was hot.
Was it?
Oh yeah.
How about your neighbors? Have there been any discussions with them? Are they upset with this?
I haven't heard anything from them. I did have to get a permit to put this up. And that was one of the things that kind of made me decide what size carport I went with. If I would have went larger than this, if I would have went 20 feet wide, then I would have needed a special permit that would need approval from my township and the county before, because we have a
Oh, good
weird thing
heavens.
here with zoning where you can only have so many square footage of outbuildings.
Uh-huh.
So that I would have went over my limit and I would have needed a special permitting process. So that kind of drove my whole 18 by 30 size. And actually this I think is the perfect size because I can still drive around each side
Yeah.
and through the center. And so I think it's going to work out good.
Did any inspectors come out to look at it, or are they going to?
No, with the permit I needed, it's just a like a land use permit. You just have, it's just a way for them to know what you're doing. I had to submit a site plan to make sure I was far enough back from any lot lines, and then it didn't need, because it's a carport type structure, it
Yeah,
didn't need any inspection.
sure. And then it seems to me too that if you were putting this onto like a perfectly flat driveway or a concrete slab, that would make life easier for you. Now, where your yard is, okay, it's flat, but it's not like perfectly flat, right? And that
Correct.
has to have played a role in keeping it square and all.
Yeah, that was the big the big X factor. And yeah, if
Yeah.
you were constructing this on a flat concrete pad or like in your wood yard where it's nice and flat, and you'd have a lot easier time squaring everything up. I had to get, I think my one side is a little higher than the other as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of things at play.
Yeah. And now here's a weird thought. What if the day comes and you're just done with all this and you would just love to have that carport out of your life? How is it? Could that be disassembled relatively easy, you think? Or would it, all those joints, did they kind of get crimped together or something too?
I think it would come apart fairly easy, and I think what you could end up doing then is, because you only put screws in on one side of the frame. So in theory, you could take this apart, put it back together using the other side of the steel frame and screw into that and have, fresh steel to drive
Ah,
your screws into.
uh-huh. And then did those self-tapping screws, do they work pretty good?
Yes and no. It's just some of them went in super easy and some of them, oh my goodness, it was just a struggle.
They
Like
just sit and spin, huh?
sit and spin and like I had a crease in the in my on my hand between my thumb and my pointer finger just
Ugh,
from pushing the impact
yeah, I
back.
bet. Did you have any of them that went in and then stripped out? They didn't tighten; they were just bottomed out and just spun.
I did not. I did not have that. So that was
Interesting.
one good thing. Yep. That was a
Okay.
good thing.
And if you had to estimate, Dan, how many screws do you think are in your carport?
Over 1,000.
Are you are you
I think.
serious?
I think easily.
Oh my gosh.
It's a lot.
I can see where your mind said the heck with this before your body gave out and you just went
Oh,
inside.
yeah. And I'm one of those people that, I was excited. I was looking forward to this. I was, really
Heck
motivated
yeah.
to get this done. And then you get to that point, like, where all of a sudden, like when I ran into the trouble with the steel not lining up on the roof, then I started getting a little frustrated. And then I get to the point where, like, I just want this over with. I just want to be done with
Yeah.
it and move on. So,
Did you have any throwing tools moments making this?
no,
No.
luckily I did not. But I
and
had,
you and your wife are still married, is that
yep,
right? And
I had plenty of moments where I would be up in this lift trying to put a screw in, and it would fling off the I'd push too hard, it'd fling off and go down on the ground. And so I'd always have to, I don't know how many screws I picked up off the ground that I went and I made sure though to like mentally make a note of everyone that went down, and then I would go and find it.
Yeah.
So I'm a 99% certain there's no missing screws that I'm going to find with my tractor tire.
I think you need to get a metal detector and spend a couple hours just walking around looking for loose problems.
Well, my son has a metal detector. The only thing I don't know is that when when you use those self-tapping screws, you get all those little shavings of
Right.
steel. So I don't know if that would pick that up or not, because there's a lot of that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that sounds exciting, and you're excited because it's done, but it's not done, right? Now you got to accessorize.
That's
It's
right.
never going to be done.
No, it's always going to be trying something a little different with either arranging the equipment or where I'm going to be splitting from, how I'm going to bring wood into it. And like I said, I want to add on a lean-to on one side for sure. And I had
Yeah.
this little shelter that I built to put my splitter in last year. And I'm thinking of like putting that on the one corner and somehow connecting it. So we'll see.
How about a windbreak, or use your IBC totes that are full and stack them along like one wall,
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I already actually have one on one of the corners
All right.
just to kind of weight that down. And then I did take some old steel that I had from a year or two ago that were big, long 12-foot sheets, like 2 foot wide. And I put those down each side to kind of stiffen it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So I've already made some modifications and trying to get it more structurally sound.
Okay. Well, this has been a very useful episode for me because I have been looking, and I just know what I can and can't do, and I know what I want to do and what I probably don't feel like doing. So that's probably why I've been dragging my feet on making this decision, because I can see like months and months of episodes of just this bare steel frame partially
Skeleton.
done with a stack of corrugated roof over in the corner.
But I think it would serve you very well in your setup, because you could go, the long way. You could have almost everything under shelter down there.
Yeah.
So I think you should look into it.
Maybe I will, or maybe I won't. I want to find, I'd like to find one that's already made, but there's like a lot of specifics that I would need for it to work under or over top of my processor. Cause those doors open up, the lids, and they are pretty high up in the air. So it's got to be a little bit taller than normal. And I think that it might work better if the peak is running perpendicular to the machine, to the input and output of the machine.
Oh, so you'd have your conveyor going out the side.
Yeah, the conveyor would be out the side of it. So I would have to, and I'm not good with my visualization. I would need someone with some mechanical aptitude to sit back and look at this and tell me if I see this the right way.
That's what I needed before I started.
And then if I were to ever build one of those, it would look like it came out of a Cat in the Hat book when I'm done with it. It'd be leaning to one side and have all these jagged edges sticking out.
Oh, that's almost what mine looks like. It's got character. Let's just say that it's got character.
Yeah, when you invite people over to look at it and you're showing it off, you're looking at the big gap up in that one corner that the other people don't notice.
Right.
This here is a mighty fine looking carport, I tell you what. Look over this way, please. All right. Well, Dan, thanks for sharing that with us. I was anxious to hear all about this. I'm glad that you got it put all together. You have all your fingers and all your skin in place.
Yeah, I'm glad to be done with it. I'm happy that I have it though. It was a fun experience. And thanks for everyone who gave me feedback on the videos and sent me messages. And it was, like I said, there was a lot of interest in seeing how this would all come together. And I don't know if the interest was more in how the building would come together or how I could screw it up.
Yeah. It's like that train wreck you can't take your eyes off of.
Right. I'm sure there was plenty of people saying, "Oh my gosh, this guy
Yeah.
is going to try putting this together." Oh, you're kidding me.
Oh boy. Well, if you want to see the build and process and the final build, tune into Dan's YouTube channel, Back 40 Firewood, and make sure you leave him a comment that you learned about this on the Woodhounds podcast.
Yes, the #1 firewood podcast in the world.
Yes. Are we really? I never knew that.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think it's now we're up to the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dan, how about let's strike up the band, and I'll let you get back to the final touches on your construction there.
Yeah, I gotta go. Like I said, figure out where I'm gonna put the splitter and start doing some production. My productions have been down putting this building up.
All right, and I'm gonna go upstairs and sit on the couch in the air conditioning, and I'll dream up a carport solution for my firewood processor.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch you back here on your whatever platform you listen to podcasts. 5 a.m. every Wednesday morning. The Woodhounds.
Yeah. And if you get a chance, guys, look for the rating, the stars on your the platform that you're listening to your podcast, and go ahead and rate us if you wouldn't mind. A 5-star would be nice, but be honest and rate us what you feel like. We'd really appreciate it. And it does help out our channel in being seen and coming up in searches from other people. So, Dan, how about let's just tell everyone to stay
safe
and be
cool
and have
a great day.